The Democratic Alliance has lost its constitutional court challenge of the IEC's decision to reopen the councillor candidate registration process ahead of the local government elections. And the IEC saying today it would not be extending tomorrow's 5 p.m. deadline to submit new candidate lists. We're joined now by political analyst Professor Sethulego Matebisi. Good evening to you, Prof, and thanks for your time. I suppose this finally puts to bed the debate around these candidate lists, which seem to leave so much into question in terms of how these elections would go.
Hi, good evening, Katie, and good evening, South Africans. Yes, for me, it has been one of those elections. A couple of months, even before they started, it has been a roller coaster ride, trying with different challenges about certain issues. But I think now we all know as South Africans that come the 1st of November, it is upon us to now exercise our democratic right. And I strongly believe that the Democratic Alliance, which in the past perhaps have won certain court battles, this time around, I think the legal advice that I got was not spot on with regard to the responsibility of the IEC towards ensuring that we will deliver a credible and fair and free election.
Professor Matebisi, one of the things that this entire debate has really revealed is, one, the extent to which they, at least when we look at certain political quarters, there seems to be very little goodwill towards the ANC. And by this I mean that much of how this conversation has been structured is that the IEC had reopened the process to benefit the ANC, or as if they were going to be the only party that would benefit.
Yeah, it's a very difficult question. One should, and we have to be very careful, because whatever we do now, we're setting a very dangerous precedent. But the question is, if it was not the African National Congress, if the ANC have not missed to submit their candidate list, would the Democratic Alliance have complained if the IEC have opened, the submissions of the names? Fact of the matter is, I would have had a huge concern if, the list was only open and another opportunity was afforded only to the African National Congress. All political parties in South Africa has an opportunity to resubmit names if they want to. And I don't think this will necessarily benefit the African National Congress. The playing field is still being leveled, and one credible institution that we have up until this far in terms of consolidating our democracy has been the IEC. I think it will be a huge, huge, huge problem if we are also going to have issues around the credibility of the IEC. But that does not mean that any South African, including organization, does not have any grounds to lay complaints against the organization.
The point that you're raising is so important, because ultimately we are at a point where there is very little trust in institutions, very little trust in the judiciary of this country. And so that means that a lot of people, when they now interpret part of the decisions that are made by the IEC or even by the Constitutional Court, don't see these decisions as coming from independent actors, but rather they see it within the context of some of the debates that are taking place in the country, and the extent to which these institutions that are supposed to be independent are actually perhaps suffering from some form of capture, if they have been infiltrated, if they are serving a particular faction that is. So the factionalism that, the ANC's former president, Kgalema Motlanthe, talks about in the report is not just limited or confined to the party, but we're now seeing it in different parts of our society, and it seems to be driving the conversation.
Yes, most definitely, Katie. The issue of trust in public institutions, it's a central one. not only in South Africa. And if for one, if you look at what has been happening in South Africa over the past 2 decades, where I think some of our political leaders have managed to crumble the effectiveness of our public institutions. But we've got Chapter 9 institutions, some of them not faring quite well, but I think the IEC and some of the decisions that our courts have been taking, once again, I think we should be able to celebrate that. And as I've indicated, the IEC has many teething challenges, and that has to do with, our officials that they select to represent them on the day of elections and all that. But fact of the matter, if we look in general over the past number of elections that we had, this is one institution where I think some of us in South Africa should definitely be proud of, despite all the other challenges at another level that we find. But the issue of trust is a huge one, and that also has a huge impact to what extent South Africans will now once again come out in their numbers to exercise their democratic right and go and vote for their local representatives.
Professor Sethulego Matebisi, let me thank you so much for your time tonight.